isn't there some case to be made that also these actors, also even ESCOs, have to broaden the scope from the technical financial perspective into a more holistic perspective in which benefits are brought with their particular activities, like the non-financial benefits that are offered, has been discussed before, towards team, towards clients. Is that something that these actors could integrate in their activities?
I think it's necessary because there's a Dr. Catherine Koreman from University of Geneva who did a PhD on this, how to sell innovative energy services. Her conclusion was we won't sell energy services because there's more important things to occupy ourselves with as an SME. So conclusion was we have to make this energy efficiency thing, we have to make it a strategic item for the SMEs. When does something become strategic? When it impacts the value proposition. So if you're a baker, you make bread, the bread needs to be more tasty. You have costs and you have risks. If you impact those three, you have something with a competitive, you have something, a service that can create a competitive advantage, and then you are selling something strategic. But I'm afraid this is theory for SMEs. I think most of the SMEs, yeah, we are rationalizing and things very deep and creating intellectual models, while in my opinion, I think the biggest barrier is emotional, loss of control, taking risks, change of habits. That's I think the most important barriers for SMEs, emotional
Deeper
ones.
root, yes. You wanted to add something, Said?
I know. I think that stakeholders management more broadly will become increasingly important, and a bigger number of stakeholders wants this climate change to be addressed, and therefore I see some benefit in putting this at the heart of any company strategy. Of course, this is more easy in bigger corporations because they feel the pressure much more than smaller companies, because they have their shareholders and they have other types of stakeholders that can really push them. But I think that it also becomes increasingly a business case. It makes a lot of sense to reflect about these topics and to do the right investment decisions and so on. Over time, I think the pressure will grow. So I'm quite confident that we're moving towards the right direction. But we discussed there are a number of barriers that needs to be addressed as well.
Still some work to be done, of course. You mentioned the funding part. And obviously you have a good view on the EU level what has been created and prepared to facilitate that green transition. Can you share your perspective on and give more details on the current funding mechanisms that are out there to drive the green transition, the energy transition?
Well, actually, we just discussed the new budget, the multi-annual framework for the next 7 years. We're almost there. There is an agreement between Parliament and Council, but there are still some issues with Hungary and Poland to solve. But it implies, for instance, that 30% of the EU budget, which is 1,000 billions of euros over these 7 years, will have to be dedicated to climate compatible projects, investments, and so on. So, and when it comes to research, it's even higher. But on top of that, we have the recovery funds, 750 billion euros that will be given to the member states to accelerate basically the transition to a green digital society. And for instance, I think it's about 37% needs to go to greening the economy, 20% to digitize the economy. So a lot of these funds will be made available in the next few years. But that's public money at EU level, sometimes, of course, spent by member states or by regions or by cities. But then, of course, we have also public-private projects. The European Investment Bank got a clear mandate to transform itself into a climate bank. And so many of its activities will actually be linked to this transition. I think at least 50% of their loans need to go to climate project, basically. So this means that they can help de-risking projects, guaranteeing projects, and therefore also stimulate private investments to come in. And then, of course, you have the private investments as such. And also there we see many developments in what we call sustainable finance. It's actually about rethinking the financial system, making sure that money goes towards the green transition and the climate transition. And so we expect actually very soon a new strategy by the Commission on this with a number of new proposals. But what is at the core of today's work is the development of a taxonomy, which is a kind of a list of activities that are green to help actually the market to understand what is green, what is not green, to avoid greenwashing, and so on. And from there, you will see a lot of other developments. Rating agencies looking at that taxonomy to define how a company is performing. They will also look at type of investment instruments to call them or label them green or not green, and so on. And I think this will create a dynamic in the market, develop new type of instruments, be it debt instruments or equity instruments. I mean, for debt, of course, we have the green bonds that are growing very fast. This may be not the right instrument for SMEs, but you also have also have green loans that are coming up. These are smaller loans, but also identified as green with a number of conditions, but that gives also visibility. And I think also there, a lot of investors are interested in giving loans or invest in bonds that have a green label. And then on the equity side, of course, many more investors will look into what type of investment I as an investor, I'm going to invest in. I want to invest in something sustainable for the long term. And one element that I should mention in this regard is that also central banks will increasingly look at risks that are today a little bit invisible, the climate risks and other sustainability risks, but that are real risks and that have a price. And they will try to find ways to make this visible. If that's the case, if this becomes the case, of course, investors will shift. So that is on the agenda. But there are many more things I can mention that is crucial.
Interesting